I'm Adrian Sargent, and I'm a relatively unique beast in that I'm a professor of fundraising, and we think currently the only chair in fundraising anywhere. And I currently teach at Indiana University in the United States. Well, fundraising education really is about helping non-profits to generate income for their organisation. But I like to think it's about a little bit more than that, in that it's also about thinking through ways in which organisations can make donors feel better about their giving, so that you maximise the utility that they get from offering the gift, and you make them feel better about having offered their support in the first place. So it's not just about making another dollar from each individual, it's also about thinking about what we can do for them to make them feel good about themselves, maybe expressing a part of kind of who they are through offering the gift. So typically fundraising education programs talk about planning and putting together campaigns and the sort of work that you need to put in before you start going out and talking to people. And then there's a big chunk of what I would call kind of donor behaviour, where you're trying to impart an understanding of why people give, what they look for from their philanthropy, and as I said before, how you can make people feel better about offering their gift. And then we teach people how to approach, ask for donations through a variety of different media, through things like direct mail, by telephone, asking one-to-one, and as I've been talking about this morning, giving through the internet. Well, marketing really, at its root, is about thinking through what people want from the organisation. It's starting from an understanding of what your different stakeholders might need from the organisation, and that might be people like donors, beneficiaries, board members, campaigners if it's a campaigning organisation. And marketing is about developing a detailed understanding of what each of those groups of people might want from the organisation, and then gearing up the organisation's programs to meet those requirements as best it can. And that's really what marketing's about. And of course, in the non-profit context, it's not just about those groups, it's also about thinking about what the wider needs of society might be. So for me, the definition of marketing in the non-profit context is sensitively serving the needs of society. Because that's what it's about. It's about understanding what society needs, understanding what different groups of people might need within that society, and then trying to do your best as an organisation to meet those needs. And there's no reason why, as a consequence, you have to be a very large organisation to do that. And even small grassroots organisations, often very intuitively, that's kind of what they do. You know, they think, okay, what difference are we going to make? And then they gear themselves up to make sure that they deliver it. And that's what marketing is. Yeah, we talked about a range of different factors that you have to address if you're going to be successful in terms of marketing online. Search engine optimization is one of those, because it's necessary to think about how you can get a good ranking in search engines like Google when somebody types in keywords that are related to what you do as an organization. So we talked about the necessity to make sure that those keywords are seeded throughout the site so that the search engine can see them, but also to make sure that you have as many links into your site as possible. So trying to get as many other people to link into you also makes a big difference in terms of the search engine ranking that you're able to achieve. We did also talk about the pay-per-click advertising that you'll see on search engines, and the fact that you can pay or bid to try and get as high ranking as possible when certain keywords turn up. And intuitively, a lot of people think, well, that's going to be expensive. But of course it's not, because you can very easily track the performance of different keywords and track through what difference those people make when they come into your site. So you can see when you buy that word, what difference that makes to your fundraising, what difference that makes to your campaigning, what difference that makes to people downloading information about something that you care about. So it's not necessarily an expensive thing. Yes, in other countries there is a scheme that Google offer where they offer to non-profits a small grant to allow them to try some of that advertising for the first time. But they are in the process of taking that global. So I would imagine that fairly soon that opportunity will be available here in Korea. And now you can sign up to find out when it's going to be available. So they'll email people that have expressed an interest when that scheme's available. We talked about other things that can assist in improving the quality of online fundraising, driving traffic to the site by thinking through PR opportunities. Journalists often use the web to find and track down new stories. So having a dedicated section of your website that's just for journalists is a smart thing to do. And sometimes journalists have their own websites that they go to research topics. And again, you can seed stories that feed in to journalists online. And we can also make sure that some of our content appears on other sites. So we can write stories for other websites, post information on other websites that all generate traffic when people click on it to come back in. And we can be thinking about using a newsletter and asking other people to share that newsletter, and somewhere in that newsletter there's another link to bring people back into the website. We talked about viral marketing, and viral marketing is about getting your supporters really to do the marketing for you. So when you make a gift to an organisation, you can encourage other people that you know to also support the organisation. So some sites permit you to send an email to friends to tell them about the work this organisation is doing and encourage them to support. Some of the online payment systems that are available these days also have that facility. So again, you can tell somebody else and then they come in and offer their support. And we also talked about email, which is another big chunk of online communication and using that in a kind of smart way. And we talked about some of the mechanics of putting that together, making sure that subject lines aren't too long, so they don't get cut off by email software, making sure that we communicate with people on a regular basis, but not so frequently that they start to get fed up. So maybe once or twice a month is fine. Beyond that, it starts to become an irritation. And we also talked about maybe checking the content of that web or that email message through a spam checker so that you know that that's not going to be filtered out. We also talked about making sure that there's at least a little bit of text in a message. Sometimes organisations put a lot of graphics in and they forget that some spam filters can pick out messages that just have those images and it ends up in the junk file, whereas in fact actually it's a message from a non-profit. So having a little bit of text there can be quite important too. I think the answer to that is that the internet is one medium and it's not the right medium for everybody. Even in other countries like in the UK, for instance, one of the things we know is that the people who give for each medium, the internet, direct mail, advertising, whatever you're using, or face-to-face, the profile of those people is a little different. So what you need as a non-profit organisation is a mix of different ways of communicating with people, some of which are going to be more appropriate for some of those groups. So the internet's a great way of engaging with sort of 20 to 40-year-old people. It's not so good at talking to people that are kind of 60 plus, although that's changing. But historically, you know, direct mail might be a better way of reaching some of those people. And in some communities, talking to people face-to-face, or having your volunteers, which can be altogether more powerful, talking to people face-to-face is a better way of communicating. So I think, I'm not suggesting that the internet is the great future. It's not. In the US, it's only responsible for about 5% of giving. But it's part of an integrated mix of different ways in which we can communicate with our audiences.